Welcome back. Believe it or not, the war in Ukraine is about to enter its 5th month, and it's one of the issues contributing, you could argue, to President Biden's troubles and the American people's discontent as we continue to send billions of dollars in order to support Ukraine in this fight against Russia. Today, the president spoke about the 3 Americans who are believed to have gone missing after they decided to join the fight in Ukraine and fight alongside Ukrainians. Take a listen.
I have been briefed. We don't know where they are, but I want to reiterate, Americans should not be going to Ukraine now. Say it again. Americans should not be going to Ukraine now. They should not be going to Ukraine.
Meanwhile, at a forum in Russia today, Vladimir Putin mocked the U.S. as a fading world power while dismissing the long-term impact of Western sanctions. Of course, he was speaking to an audience that included the Taliban. Meanwhile, more Americans now say Russia is winning the war than say Ukraine is. That's according to a new poll from The Economist in YouGov. So I'm joined by Bill Taylor. He, of course, served as U.S. ambassador to Ukraine during the George W. Bush administration. He's now vice president of Russia and Europe at the U.S. Institute of Peace. Bill, you've been concerned about this for weeks, and it feels like, there's continuing to be, the West is looking for a way to get this to a resolution faster, perhaps, than our friends in Ukraine. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say that some in the West are trying to do that. I think there are those who realize that if we go for a negotiation, or if President Zelensky goes for a negotiation or a ceasefire right now, that locks in Putin's gains. Right. That gives Putin a lot of Ukrainian land that will be hard to take back. And President Zelensky knows that there's help on the way. He knows that these big weapons are coming.
But man, they're taking a while, right? Like this is, you've got some context on the front lines.
I do?
Yeah. What do they tell you? They felt good a couple weeks ago. How are they feeling today?
They're still feeling like they're getting outgunned. They're still outgunned. However, they know that there are more coming. There are 200 of these long 155 long-range weapons. Both the United States and others are providing these things. They're firing them real hard. There's information that some of these new tubes, these 155 tubes, are burned out. They've been firing so much they have to go back and get repaired and then get back to the front. So they're clearly in use, and they're clearly much more accurate than the Russians. The Russians are just bombarding almost irresponsibly, but the Ukrainians are able to use these new weapons very targeted way, and they're more on the way. So if they can hold out, and then they would like to be able to push back.
You know, for a long time it was said that time is on the Russian side, but is time actually, if we can, the longer Ukraine essentially keeps this a standstill, does suddenly time favor the Ukrainians?
For all the reasons that you were talking about earlier, it would be good for the Ukrainians to push back quickly. There is support that is waning. There are the economic effects that are mounting. There's public opinion that is volatile. Ukraine needs to have some wins, and they're looking for these wins to be able to push back. That's going to depend on U.S. and NATO support.
Putin seemed to saber rattle a little bit on natural gas, sending a bit of a message to Germany on the day that this group of EU leaders came. And on one hand, I think pledged significant support for Ukraine's membership in the EU. But you can just feel it in Germany in particular. I mean, they don't have a lot of patience to be cut off from Russian gas like this, do they?
They don't have patience, and the price of gas is clearly going to go up. And Putin is exactly what you say. He's starting to play with that.
Does he think he can break the European alliance?
Well, he doesn't. There's no indication that the European alliance is going to break.
That doesn't mean he doesn't think he can break it, right?
That doesn't mean he doesn't think. I mean, he can certainly try, and he's using that gas weapon. That's a gas weapon that hurts him as well. I mean, if he cuts sales, he loses that revenue. One of the big things about the gas and the oil that he's given to the Europeans is that's a source of revenue that keeps his military going. If he cuts back on that, he loses that.
Have we overrated the importance of sanctions?
Sanctions are more effective the longer time they go. In particular, the big sanctions are these export bans. That is our refusal to provide chips to the Russians. They've used probably 70 or more % of their precision-guided munitions. The only way they can replace those is using these chips. They don't have those, so they can't do that. They're relegated now to dumb bombs.
So the reason I ask that is it seems that Russia was more prepared to withstand this than we anticipated. Is that fair to say?
Maybe. However, they weren't prepared for the big sanction that we're putting into effect, which is to freeze their, and maybe even take, their central bank reserves.
Okay.
They had $600 billion, $300 billion abroad, and they don't have that now.
Is this a war that gets resolved this year or not?
Probably not. It probably goes into next year. It probably goes into next year. Both sides are fighting hard. Both sides think that they can win some more on the battlefield. As long as that's the case, we're not looking at an early termination.
Nobody seems to be incentivized to that. But at what point do the European leaders almost start to get even more antsy?
The European leaders will get antsy, but the Ukrainians will fight as long as those weapons, fuel, ammunition comes in. There's no sign that that's stopping. In fact, it's the opposite. Right now, we're starting to hit the stride. It needs to be stronger. It needs to be more. But its flow is increasing, and that's what the Ukrainians need.
All right. Bill Taylor, former ambassador. Always good to get your perspective.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you. After the break, yet another.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.